Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're in the Hachaim. We're in Parshat Vayishlach, the first pasuk, Perek Lamed Beis, pasuk Dalet. Tzarich Ladas, Oimru Lefanav. The pasuk wants to know, why does the pasuk have to say that these Malachim were in front of him? We know that they were in front of him because we already learned in last week's parsha. The pasuk could have said, Yaakov sent Malachim to Esav, and we would know that these Malachim were here. In addition, says the Hachaim, why did the Torah have to tell us that Esav was his brother? We all know that it's his brother. Now it's true that there are other psukim and told us in other parshios that it says Esav Achiv, but in every place the Hachaim wants to know, why did it have to tell us? Why do we have to know where Esav was? It's very Parshat. The pasuk should have simply said that Yaakov sent Malachim to Esav, and that's it. And we would have understood wherever he was. That's where the Malachim would go. It's not important for us to know, says the Hachaim, where Esav was. So the fact that the Torah did tell us, the Hachaim is inferring, it is important for us to know where Esav was, and therefore, why do we have to know? Now, and the Hachaim brings a famous rule in Diktuk, is that it says Arza with a hey. And we know that it could always be Arza or Le'eretz, like Mitzraymo Mitzrayim. So why did it say Arza and not Le'eretz? Now, it's true that they're interchangeable, but even still, the Torah decided to use the word Arza instead of Le'eretz, and there has to be a limud here, there has to be a lesson for us, and what is the lesson? Afa pikein, there's something that caused it to be changed. Besides the fact that they're gematrius, besides the fact that there's different remozim in using a letter hey instead of a lamed, right? Parshat says the Hachaim, why did the Torah choose the word arza and not le'eretz? Achein, therefore, the Hachaim is going to teach us what exactly was Yaakov's kavana in sending Malachim. So really, there's 2 points to understand the Hachaim. Number one, why did Yaakov send Malachim? And really, on the more so, why did he have to send angels, Malachim? Why couldn't he send people? Now, if you want to say Malachim means people and not Malachim, the psukim don't seem to say that, because it could have said Vayishlach Yaakov shluchim or anoshim, and Rashi's Parshat. Rashi seems to say very clearly that it means Malachim Mamish. So it seems to be that Al Pi Parshat, it's understood that Yaakov sent Malachim. Why? Lama Yishtamish b'mishar say Elyon Leitzarich. Why do you have to use Malachim? Right? For no reason. There was no reason to send Malachim. He could have sent people. Ki Yochel Asis Adava Yidei Mishar say Adam Gam B'nei Ish. Yaakov Avinu could have sent regular people to Esav. Now we really have to understand, why is Yaakov sending Malachim to Esav? Now we're going to see that he's going to send them presents. Now if that was the case, he could have just said very simply, he could have sent regular people. So the Hachaim is going to teach us what exactly was Yaakov Avinu's intent and objective by sending Malachim, that he understood that he was allowed to send Malachim, and he could not have sent people. Or he needed to send Malachim, probably a better way to teach it. He needed to send specifically Malachim, Mishar Say Elyon, and not people. This is why the pasuk tells us that they were in front of him. Pirush letzat heyosim lefanav. The fact that these Malachim were in front of him, right, and which means that they were walking in front of him, Yaakov understood, Don ki hushu lehishtamish behem lashe yitztarach lehem. If they would not be around him, then he wouldn't have been able to use them, right? If they weren't around, he wouldn't have been able to call and say, please Hashem, send me Malachim. The fact that they were there to protect him, he understood that in the right situation, that they were at his disposal to be used. But davar, what situation? Shen yochol la'asais aydei bnei adam. Yaakov understood that since these Malachim were sent to help him, they were allowed for his personal use in a case where something could not be done by people. V'omar ki hutzrach lehem letzad she'ashlichus hu Esav. How did Yaakov know that he had to send them and not regular people? Because I'm sending agents to Esav. Who Adam Gadol, and he's a very choshev, prominent person, like we know Melish Rabbah. Ushlichas acherim, and by sending regular people, efshesh leyachshav oisam lashivam. Yaakov made a cheshbon. Yaakov said the following: I need to send representatives to Esav. We'll see why in a second. I see that Hashem sent me Malachim to protect me, which I understand that in the right situation, I can actually use them for my protection. What's that situation? In a place that I can't use regular people. Where can I not use regular people? When I'm sending them to Esav. Why not? Because Esav was a very important person. Esav was a gibor. He killed Nimrod. He was a ruler. He had a major army. To send regular messages, Esav would ignore them. If I send Malachim, Malachim Esav is not going to ignore. Even though Esav was familiar with Malachim from being in the house of Yitzchak, even Esav understood that Malachim were not things to be trifled with, to push away. Another reason, he was afraid that Esav would kill the messengers before they even had a chance to say anything. And would attack Yaakov like an eagle sweeps down on its prey in surprise. Yaakov would have no idea that Esav was coming. By sending Malachim, he accomplished an additional two objectives. Number one, Esav wouldn't be able to defeat them. And Lu Yitzur, Esav would send an army in surprise. The Malachim would be able to pre-warn Yaakov Avinu that Esav is coming. Like we mentioned before, by seeing that Yaakov is sending Malachim, Esav would become afraid. And he would say, hey, the Malachim are coming here. This is a very serious situation. And if Yaakov is sending Malachim, I got to be careful. Like the Medrash says, some of these Malachim were actually clothed in fire, and they were riding horses. They look like these tremendous giborim, these tremendous soldiers. The purpose of looking like this was to instill fear on Esav. In order that Esav should think twice before starting up with Yaakov. So Yaakov understood that these three objectives that he wanted to send a message to Esav could only be done by Malachim. We're going to see a few more in a second. The first one was that he wanted to send very choshev representatives. Who were the most choshev? Can't have a more choshev than a malach. The second one was to pre-warn Yaakov if Esav was coming, and in addition, to ensure that Esav would not attack the malachim, that Esav would see the malachim, he knows that he can't fight with them, and on the contrary, be afraid of starting up with Yaakov Avinu. Va'imr el achiv. So why do I have to know el achiv? I understand the word lefanav, which now we learned to teach me that the malachim were in front of Yaakov to be used. We understand el Esav because he needed to send malachim specifically to the person Esav. Why do I have to know his brother? Pirish tam hishtadlusa b'shlichu ze b'derech shalom v'rabanos. He wanted to send a message to Esav, you're my brother. Letzad heyois achiv v'yechosh shlo yikones ima b'mochama. And therefore, let's not get into a war. Shema, right? For two reasons. Number one, you're my brother. And number two, not only you're my brother, you also have the schus of Yaakov and Yitzchak. Avram and Yitzchak. And he was afraid to start up with Esav. Now, even though Yaakov Avinu also had schus avos, but we know that Esav in certain areas was on a higher level. And also, Yaakov was nervous that even though I went on the command of my parents to Lavan's house, maybe I didn't do it 100%. Maybe there's certain things that I should have done better. So therefore, Yaakov was afraid that since Esav was more home than not, he had that extra schus. Or the Yitzhak Zehaderach. El Esav, Shehu Soinei. I'm sending messengers to Esav, who is my enemy. El Achiv, She'ene Soinei. Pir Shiyasu Hashlichus Le'erich Asher Yimtza'u. Yaakov at this point did not know Esav's intentions. Was Esav coming to me as a brother and it would be peaceful, or is coming to me as Esav, my enemy? Now, the only person or the only representative that could figure it out right away would be Malachim. Really, you cannot know unless you're a Malach what exactly the emes was Esav's intentions. Even a smart and observant human being would not have been able to discern Esav's true intention. And therefore, Yaakov understood that he had the right to use Malachim in this case, because only they would know Esav's true intention. Or Yirtza, another possibility. He wanted to send messengers early, before Esav would learn that Yaakov was already on the way. Before Esav would hear that Yaakov was coming and would get angry, Yaakov decided, let me send a messenger of peace. This way Esav would be much more relaxed. The Hachaim now teaches us an unbelievable thing. Malachim do need not to travel. Malachim are not bound by time, space, and distance. The Malachim in 1 second are standing in front of you. They turn around, they can be on the other side of the world. And therefore, Yaakov understood that in order to send Malachim instantly to Esav, to make sure that no one else tells him that he was on the way, the only people that can in an instant get from Yaakov to Esav was Malachim. The whole world to them is like 4 amos, like we said. They are not bound by physical time, space, and distance. Vayishlach Malachim atam lifanav el Esav. Pirushem oimdam lifanav. The Hachaim is teaching us a beautiful thing. The Malachim are in front of us, in front of Yaakov, and the next word, they're already in front of Esav. El Esav, to Esav. It's in a second, they can go from Yaakov to Esav, and back to Yaakov, and back to Esav. Pirushem oidam oimdam lifanav. They're still in front of Yaakov. Vehem oisum shlichusam al Esav achiv, and in an instant they can make their shlichus to Esav. Hagam shu b'makim rachok. V'hu oimer atzaseyer. That's why the pasuk now, the Hachaim gets to the next part. Why did it have to say atzaseyer? V'lezel lo omar le'eretz. That's why it did not say le'eretz. Ki lo yitztarchu la'leches. They don't have to travel at all. The word le'eretz seems to be that I'm going to this place. They weren't going to this place because they were already there, right? As we explained, the Malachim, the Hachaim says beautifully, they were in front of Yaakov and then they were already in front of Esav. If it would have said le'eretz, I would have thought that they have to travel to the place that Esav was. The Hachaim is medaik that the fact, he brings a proof to his raya that Yaakov wanted Malachim in order that they should travel instantly to Esav from the word arza. Because the word arza says, you're here and I'm sending you already to the Eretz. How could you already be there? Because they're Malachim. If it would have said le'eretz, then the Hachaim is medayik that it would have had to mean that they were traveling to Eretz Seir. But now they were not. Like we said before, they're standing in front of Yaakov. Now they're turning around and they're talking to Esav. Even though Esav could be a week's travel away. They don't have to travel. Then they turn back to Yaakov and they give him the response. And then they turn back. So this could all happen in a span of less than a minute. And that was Yaakov's intention, in order to quickly diffuse any potential issue. And if Chas Shalom there was an issue, Yaakov Avinu would be able to have a couple of days to prepare. Why did it have to tell us where he was? To tell us that they already told him even before he left. The place that Esav was in a place called Edom. By using Malachim, he was able to specifically send them to stay. Esav was actually sitting. Now it could be he was on the way out, it could be he was traveling, but that was his area of where he was situated. And our Hachaim is teaching us, this is why the pasuk is telling us that he sent to Arza, stay Edom, in order to teach us that the Malachim immediately were in the place of Esav, in order that they should tell Esav right away that Yaakov was coming. But derech remes, this is all Parshat Pshat. So Parshat Pshat, we see that the Torah is teaching us Yaakov's intention to use specific Malachim, to protect him, to pre-warn him if Esav would come in a surprise attack, in order to determine, is Esav coming as my enemy, is he coming as my brother, and also to be able to be the first one to tell Esav that Yaakov's on the way back. B'derech remes, the Hachaim now teaches us b'derech remes, this pasuk is alluding to our relationship with Esav throughout the Doros, our relationship with Edom. There are 3 different time periods of our relationship with Esav. The first period is where Yaakov and Esav were in peace, where they're the same. That's why the pasuk says the first time period, Esav is our brother. This was until the first destruction, the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. And even though it's true that during the first Beis Hamikdash, there were times that Klal Yisrael ruled over areas of Edom, in the totality of the Bayis Rishon, it was really for a short time. And for the most part, we were on friendly terms. V'hasheni, the second time period, Mizman Shenecha Rabbis Alakes, is from the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash all the way until Mashiach. She'esav b'mala gedoyla ve'inmala Yisrael nikers lefonav. That Esav is on such a high level that even if Klal Yisrael is raised, the distance between us and Esav is so great that we can't even discern it. We see today, even for sure, even, we all think we have Eretz Yisrael, we have this, we have that. Look at the Klal Yisrael's contributions to the world. But Edom is so raised up in the eyes of everybody. The Western values are raised up so high that we're not even acknowledged. Right? And that's the second period. The word arza has a patach. Now, api Kabbalah, the patach is a reference that Esav is on a high level. Vashlishi, the third zman when Mashiach will come, will be when Edom is destroyed. That's why it says Sidei Edom. It's a field, which means that Edom will become a field. All their things that they built will be destroyed. All the things that they had will be plowed, and that will be at the time period of Mashiach when we will, Klal Yisrael, once again be raised upon Edom. And from here, the Hachaim teaches us how much we can learn from one pasuk, from every word that's used, every letter that is not used, the diyukim, the inferences that the pasuk teaches us, what exactly was Yaakov's intention to send specifically Malachim.